The information provided on this channel, including interviews and discussions, is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as medical advice. Always consult with a trained healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, or healthcare regimen. The experiences and opinions shared by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of this channel. All right, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MT4MH Studios, where we spread our love and we share our ketogenic lifestyles. Today, we have an incredibly inspiring guest, Mia Mendez, who has overcome immense challenges through the use of the ketogenic diet. I first heard her on the famous Bipolar cast, which was episode 11. Mia is a single mom, and despite battling bipolar disorder for 41 years, thanks to the power of the ketogenic diet, she's been living medication-free for 6 years. She is now a ketogenic lifestyle coach and a complex trauma recovery coach. In this episode, we will discuss her journey from rock bottom, including homelessness and severe trauma, to becoming a beacon of hope and resilience. Her story is nothing short of remarkable. We'll dive into how she discovered the keto diet, her daily practices, and her advice for others facing similar struggles. On Twitter, her name is Recover with Mia. She has over 1,000 followers. Let's welcome Mia to the show. Mia, how are you today?
Hi, Stephen. I love the intro. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for having me here. I'm excited to get into the wonderful world of keto with you.
Awesome. I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. I've been really looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you start by sharing a bit about your background and your journey with bipolar disorder?
I really had a long history of struggles with mental health way before I was diagnosed with bipolar 2. And I was officially diagnosed with bipolar 2 in my mid-30s, I think. But I think I had it for a while before that. It just went undiagnosed. So before that diagnosis, my childhood just started with a lot of anxiety. And I was a very sad child, had a difficult childhood and teenagehood and just difficult time for decades, honestly. And within that time, so many different diagnoses were thrown at me: OCD, agoraphobia, ADHD, possibly body dysmorphia, major depression, clinical depression, all kinds of things. And of course, then the cherry on top was the bipolar diagnosis. During that 41 years before I found ketogenic therapy, I, like you said, experienced at rock bottom being homeless, having to be separated from my two younger ones. My two older ones at the time, thankfully, were on their own already. One was in the Marine Corps. But my two younger ones, because I didn't know where we were going to go, had to, go with friends. Before that, prior, when I was younger, I most of the time was not able to hold a full-time job. I had very unstable relationships, unbelievable depression and anxiety, debilitating. And, I was not able to function or really participate in society like I wanted to, like anybody would want to. And so the rock bottom did come 2017, I believe, where I didn't see any other options for me. I had tried, talk therapy and medications, and I did experience several hospitalizations. And I really just kept getting worse, not only on the mental health level, but the physical level also. My body was falling apart, literally. I would have these spontaneous partial labral tears in my joints for no reason. So I was full of inflammation. I was not functioning. I had terrible cognitive issues and brain fog and awful anger. And I just didn't see, I didn't know what my options were. And because I had tried so many, I happened to stumble upon the ketogenic diet, just a little blip on the internet. And then I started to research it because if I didn't have anything else to try, I was actually going to, as they say now on the internet, unalive myself. I had pretty much decided on it at that point. I was 41 and I was done. I was completely done at that point.
So I was going to ask you to tell us about some of your lowest points, but I would have to say that that's probably a low point there if you were that close to offing yourself.
That was absolutely one of my lowest points, when I had actually believed that there was no other way, and that it was inhumane for anyone to expect me to go on in that condition. People don't understand what's going on in our minds and our bodies, and there are no words to describe it. And so not only are you in this living hell, but you're totally isolated because nobody understands.
That's so very true. During our prep, you and I discussed how we are so much alike in that we both deal with anger as a prominent symptom. It's not something I hear from people. So I wanted to hear from you what that was like dealing with such severe anger for so long.
I love that we're talking about this, because I feel the same way. People don't talk about that symptom, because that's exactly what it is. But I had a boyfriend at one time, long time ago, during one of the heights of my madness. He labeled me a rageaholic. As much as I don't like the guy, I mean, he was right. It's a good term. I was rageaholic. And that is probably the first thing that arises if I go off keto, is the irritability. And then it could go just even to straight, just really angry. Now, at this stage in my recovery, because I've done other things aside from ketogenic therapy, I have done some deeper work with my mindset and with trauma recovery, that I can catch myself 90% of the time from causing damage. So if I'm feeling the irritability, if I have this rage going on beneath the surface, I do have some tools that I could not lash out at people or get into an argument in the supermarket, because that's how bad things can get for me, where sometimes I'll actually say, I can't be in public right now. I shouldn't be driving. I can't be in public. I'm going to get into a fight, and I'm 40 something years old. I can't do this. So I have boundaries with myself, and I have emergency kind of protocols to put in place. Like, you're not okay right now. You need to go home, and you should probably not speak to anybody, because you're going to cause relational damage. And I've done enough of that with my kids. So I have to be very careful.
It's making me very emotional hear you talk about this,
I
because
see that.
I resonate with it so deeply, because I spent so much of my life dealing with such great depths of anger.
Absolutely.
And I don't hear anybody talking about that. And for me, it's the first thing. It can be as simple as everything is fine. I've got my diet locked in, and then there's a cold in the house, and I've got a sore throat, and I didn't sleep well. And then all of a sudden I'm snapping at people.
Yeah.
It's the first thing.
Yeah. And I believe it's, it's just, I mean, this is just, I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I really believe it's the inflammation. I think the inflammation just sets off such a response, and, the energy production just takes such a hit, and it's almost like you just become chemically toxic to yourself.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if anybody's familiar with Chris Palmer's work, he talks about mitochondria. So we either have too few, or they don't process energy correctly. So that's probably the root cause. I'm the kind of guy who appreciates the science, and I want to know what is going on. It probably is an inflammation issue. I feel like I have proven that over time, because I have foods that I react to. One of them would be dairy. Another one is I discovered cocoa. Unfortunately, cocoa I really react to bad. It gives me skin issues, but it also makes me irritable. But I have had times where I've eaten things like that, and I've also taken high doses of anti-inflammatories that night or the next day, and it does not affect me as bad.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I discovered that at a time where I was still using that as a cheat code. I was like, well, I could eat such and such if I just take 600 milligrams of Advil at night. I won't be so irritable the next day. And most of the time it worked. So I feel like you're right. I think it is an inflammation issue.
Yeah. And like Chris Palmer says, he says we don't actually know the cause of mental illness. We just know the risk factors. So it's the oxidative stress and inflammation, and it could be heavy metals, and it could be the food, and it could be the water, and it could be vaccine. It could be so many different things.
I spent a lot of time obsessing over what the cause was, hoping that that
Mhm.
would lead to a solution, and I'm finally at a point that I still wanna know, but I don't really care. I know what works. I found a solution, and all I know is that it works. I don't really care exactly what it's doing. It's not that important.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's another piece of well-being is if you spend so much time obsessing, you're causing problems. That being putting your nervous system and your mind in that state is also going to harm mitochondria. So there's a balance between how much effort can I put forth in cleaning up my environment without driving myself crazy and harming myself in that way. So there's a delicate balance there. And it's hard to find, but I believe I found it because I just listened to my body like you. It's like I'm doing what I can. And if I start to obsess about doing more, I can feel that I'm not going to feel well. So that's where I stop. Maybe in the future, there are some more things I can clean up. But as of today, this is all I'm willing to do because I value my stability and my sanity first. And I just have to start there because without that, I have nothing.
Right, and it's the same for me, and as the father of a soon to be 8-year-old, it my mental health and my stability is the most important thing because while she has her own troubles, I don't want to be an extra burden on her. I don't wanna be a reason that she's gonna be any more messed up than she could possibly be.
Absolutely. This is a tough time. This is a tough time to be a parent and a tough time, I think, to be a kid too. And I love that, what you're doing with your daughter. I wish I had had this information when I was raising my kids because, like I had mentioned before when we spoke briefly, my illnesses and this mitochondrial dysfunction, if you will, screwed up my kids, not because they have it, but because they had to witness a really sick person, a really sick, unhinged person that could not connect with them. That's all they had. Didn't have a dad around. We didn't have family support. I didn't have friends to help me. So the fallout is really unbelievable from mental illness. And I'm just so happy for you and your daughter. I really am that you are probably going to avoid a lot of what, my kids had to go through.
Well, that's my hope, and at the very least, we're both aware that we have issues. We're both aware of a solution and we're trying. And part of the reason that I started this whole social thing, it's been very uncomfortable for me to be a contributor on social media. It's all brand new and putting our lives out there and everything. But I feel like the message is so important and so strong. When I look at her and all of her peers, our youth are suffering very, very
Hmm.
poorly. And she has a lot of friends that they're not as bad as her, but they're not good. They're not
Yeah,
well and they're eating pretzels and goldfish crackers and they have terrible, terrible diets and they're drinking Gatorade and they're consuming all this sugar. And already in just a few short months, we've had an impact on some of our neighbors and some of our friends, and they're starting to make
amazing.
small changes to clean up their diets. Like simple thing like one of our neighbors, their kid enjoys cheese sticks. Instead of bringing goldfish crackers, now they're bringing cheese sticks to the park for a snack. You know?
Amazing.
Yeah, and that's I mean, it's more than I could have hoped for to try to get the message out and to actually help people.
Yeah, and I hear you on how it's challenging to be in public. It is. There are a lot of thoughts that go on in my mind, and I get nervous, and you feel like imposter syndrome. But how I've overcome that is that the message is more important than my limited thinking and my insecurities. I will not let, the insecurities and the vulnerability stop me from getting this message out. It's just like I appear on podcasts and I accept interviews because I'm like, you have to get used to this because this is what you put here on earth for. Like I just know it. And so I just do my best. And, every time I finish an interview or something, I'm just like, oh gosh, but it's always better than I think. But I'm just so dedicated to the message. I know how important my story is and stories like yours. It's too important for me to be quiet. This can save lives, not only change lives, save lives, save lives. And it's free. You don't need a prescription, although we'll get into, of course it's great if you have some guidance, But at the end of the day, you don't need a prescription to clean up your diet and to do some of the things that we're promoting, some of these metabolic strategies. You don't need anyone to give you permission to do it. So it's very empowering. And that's not a message that we're used to when you're suffering from mental health and you have to go through the horrific, abysmal mental health. I don't even want to say health care, because it's not caring for anything, often making things much worse. But you're not used to having the agency or being empowered going through the system in this country and many other countries. I see people from all over the world, and it's even worse than here. It's so important to get this quality, good, sound information out to just the average person.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. And that's a big part of the motivation for me doing this whole thing. Prior to this, I did not participate in social media, and we didn't have Samantha. Like, we didn't even have our family members posting pictures of her on Facebook because we were concerned about her safety. But I do feel like the message is that important that we need to get it out there. Because most people are not as messed up as you and I are, and don't need to do the diet the way we do it for health. And Samantha, she's going to be a little bit worse off than most of her peers. She's not doing the diet to the extent that we are.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, for a lot of her peers, they don't need much. They just need a little edge. And I learned right away that I need to keep a lot of the information on my channel as a 30,000-foot view, because most people don't even know what a carb is, let
Right.
alone a macro. People don't know what any of this stuff is. There are lots of people out there, they've heard of keto, but they don't even know what keto is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Just to get that overview message out to people, but also for kids that are really suffering, or for adults like us that are really suffering. Our paths are very similar. You found something about keto online. I did not. I found this by accident. I changed my diet to lose weight, and then I heard about the carnivore thing 5 years ago, and I started eating fat and meat, and I discovered I needed more fat to feel better, and I got into ketosis by accident. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know it was ketosis at the time.
Wow.
I just found like this magic feeling, and I didn't know what it was, and it took me a while to get back to it. This is 5 years ago. You found your information online 6 years ago. I just didn't see it. Right today, it's pretty prominent. It's all over the place, but I want to make sure it gets out there far and wide.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I stumbled upon it. But no, I want to go back to something that you said. Yeah, not everyone has to do what we do. They don't need to take 70 to 90% of their calories from fat. Somebody in my family, for example, very close to me, is just, was moody. He's a moody young person, 25 years old, has a history of complex trauma. And if he just goes lower carb and he's not having sugars and grains, and he's having a higher beef consumption, he's like a different person. I don't even know if he's in ketosis much, but just getting low carb for some people can make a really huge impact. So I did this volunteering for one summer. I was volunteering on organic farms. And so I met a lot of people. We had several different hosts, myself and my daughter, across that volunteer period. And they are responsible for feeding you. So they had to know kind of they had to learn about low carb and keto. And you stay in their homes, for several weeks, and you get to know them pretty intimately. It's really a wonderful experience. And I've had some of the hosts come back to me and say, you know what, you inspired me so much that, I started in the direction of keto, or did low carb, or went keto, and they can't believe just on their energy levels. They're not bipolar. They don't have serious things. One woman did have some PTSD actually in her history. And so I've had people circle back and say, Mia, you've inspired me to really make a connection between the food and my mood and my mental health. It's amazing to see all the different ways it can help different people.
That's true. I agree with you. It's cool because I have friends of mine that are not mentally ill at all, but they're viewing my channel to help me with the production and to give me feedback and my lighting and my sound and everything. But there have been some of them that are, they're watching the shows and they're like, well, maybe I kind of could do a little bit better with my diet. And they're asking me questions. I have a neighbor friend who has been doing that similarly, who has never really looked at his diet, didn't really know what a carb was. He's on a statin, he's only in his mid 40s, and he started asking me questions. So it's amazing the impact that we can have on people just by getting the message out.
And that's why it's important to live out loud, okay? To get your story out there, to witness, be a witness for this way of life. And any opportunity I have, even if I'm in a grocery store and I overhear a conversation that I might be able to like kind of just, wiggle into respectively, I do. And people are fascinated, by what I have to say about, my story and how bad it was for me. So it's a mission. It's an important, crucial mission that both of us, are on to inspire and educate people that there are better ways.
I'm now doing the same thing as you. When I talk to my local butcher, or a couple weeks ago, I was at a birthday party and I was talking to a dad, and I'm trying to remember what shirt I had on. I had I like beef cuts and I cannot lie.
I like that.
One of the dads commented, and we got to talking, and he wanted to know why he's doing everything right. He's following all the dietary advice. He's eating a ton of fruit and a ton of grains, and why does he have a gut? And we started talking, and I told him what I do. And he's like, so I could just eat meat and get healthier? I'm like, yeah, I could give it a shot. And I saw him 2 weeks later. He had been eating mostly meat, and he looked different. He dropped 15 pounds. You could see it in his face, and you could see his gut gone down, his energy. And he mentioned to me, I didn't ask, he mentioned to me that his anxiety was better. He was more calm. He was happy. He's not diagnosed with mental health, but he said his anxiety is better. His wheels aren't spinning. He's sleeping better at night. All these amazing benefits just from lowering his carbs. We know what led you to try the ketogenic diet, but how did you start incorporating it into your life?
When I realized what it was all about, and that sugar had to go and grains had to go and potatoes had to go. I loved potatoes, sweet potatoes, and any kind of potatoes. I didn't think I would be able to do it. I couldn't imagine, because I was such a sugar addict, such a carb addict. I didn't know how I was going to do it. So I made a plan, and I said, okay, there's keto way in the distance. This is just kind of the analogy I have. There's keto way, way, way in the distance. I see it. I'm understanding it. I'm getting to know it better. So I'll look at my plate every day, and I'll look at the stuff that I buy, and I'll head in that direction. I'll see how close I can get. I'll see how difficult this is. I didn't put pressure on myself, but I definitely was determined to try to do this. And so what I did was, like I said, I would just make better choices little by little. I knew the sugar had to go. So I think I, chose to use like a sugar substitute. And then I would get rid of anything starchy. So I had already gone mostly grain-free, believe it or not, way before keto, because I noticed that pasta would make me so depressed and like irritable and depressed, so low for several days. So I had already gone grain-free, but I had my things that definitely had carbs in it. And I don't like to cook. So I actually chose a pre-made meal that you get they're not good, but the macros were okay. They were low carb macros, like a frozen meals, refrigerated meals at the grocery store, full of sodium, terrible sodium and seed oils. But that was closer to keto. I didn't have to be keto. I needed to just get closer to keto every few weeks. And I just lived on them, and I, just cut carbs and cut all the things that weren't keto out little by little. And then I ended up getting down to just having sweet potatoes on my plate. I would have like half a sweet potato, and I would have some regular dark chocolate. And I said, okay, I'm kind of almost there. So I think I'm going to make the jump. So I did it very slowly. I did it very gradually. I didn't put pressure on myself, but then I made the jump, and the jump is, it seems like, oh, you just had sweet potatoes left. So get rid of the sweet potatoes and you should be fine. There's a huge jump. There's a huge jump from having a half a sweet potato to having 20 carbs a day or less. That's when the fun starts. Luckily, I did have good knowledge of electrolytes, so I knew the possibilities of not feeling well for a couple of days, or maybe if you do it, if you're not really not doing it correctly, it could last longer. So I knew to get on the electrolytes as soon as I went keto, because the absence of carbs now completely changes your fluid balance game. I was tired, but again, I had information that if you go through this, just rest. And I wasn't working, I couldn't work. So I had the luxury that I could just rest through the keto flu while I was trying to figure out my electrolytes. And while the changes at the cellular level with the mitochondria inside of your cells, while all that construction and renovation is happening, I was able to just rest more. So I would say I got the keto flu, but I wasn't too bad with it. It was nothing crazy.
It's really great advice that you give. And it's the same advice I've been giving to a friend of mine. I hope he's going to listen, because he's trying to get closer to keto and he tries too much fast. And my advice for anybody trying this is go slow, take it easy, be gentle on yourself. It's the same thing I say across all walks of life. If you're looking to start weightlifting for the first time, or I'm pushing the sprinting message, I'm helping people learn how to sprint, and just go easy, take it slow. And that's exactly what you did. You gradually lowered and you got closer and closer. Can you estimate how long it took you to get from where you first started to when you ditched the sweet potato?
This is a guess, maybe 2 months. Some people just want to rip the Band-Aid off when it comes to things. With my history, specifically just who I am, what I've been through, that's just not a good way for me to do things. Like you said, I have to be gentle with myself. I cannot force myself, or, use brute force to get myself to do things, because that approach backfires. It just backfires. I have to be careful with pushing myself to do things that are just really tough. So for me, the gradual approach, people who follow, I love, David Goggins. I still love him. I get a lot out of his message, but I'm not going to put myself through certain things the way that he does and some of his followers do. Still totally inspirational, but I have to be careful with using that approach.
Yeah, I'm the same way as you. And over the years, I've had substance abuse issues and so many different antidepressants that I had to get off of. And with none of that stuff, I could never do a cold turkey approach. I could never rip the Band-Aid off. And the amount of times that I had to quit smoking marijuana, it was the only thing that ever made me feel normal. And then I smoked so much of it for so much of the time that getting off of it was impossible. And I had to go. And there were several medications that I took that I had to go super duper slow. Otherwise, it was just a miserable experience. Same thing with quitting nicotine. If I went too fast, I would rebound real fast. So I agree with you. It's a slow, gentle approach that works. And I think no matter what your personality is, I think that's a safe bet and a safe approach for most people.
I think it sets us up for a more sustainable, journey, because it's easy. And you're not like kind of traumatizing yourself by forcing yourself into this completely new lifestyle, and also shocking the body. And now you're dealing with all of this additional stress. I just don't see the need for it. I know people who were as bad as I was mentally. I know the desperation. But you got that far. Just take a month to ease into it, and make sure that you have the right support so you can avoid some of the negative things that can happen if you're out of balance with electrolytes. Just going in easy is really the best way. And it's also showing yourself self-love, because some of us have a trouble with that as well. So being gentle is also kind of caring for yourself and kind of reparenting yourself, especially if you had a tough upbringing like I did.
That's exactly right. And it's the same message that I've been giving to friends of mine. The one friend that I talked about, he wants to do everything so extreme, and he'll say, well, today I'm eating keto. And then I talk to him tomorrow and he says, well, I screwed up. I failed. I had cookies at night. I'm like, it's all right. It was too drastic of a goal. There's no way you were going to do keto for one day. So you had cookies. How many did you have? Well, I had 6. Okay. So tomorrow have 5. Then the next day have 4, then have 3, then have 2. See if you can do it that way. Then you're not failing. You can still have cookies. You can think about the cookies all day if you want. It can get you through your day. You're having those cookies at the end of the day. And I also advise for him to not just plan it, but track it in an app and see how many carbs it is. And that will really set you up for success?
That's amazing advice. It really is amazing advice. And let me just go back and say, once I got rid of the sweet potato, I would once a week, couldn't take it anymore. And I would go have like Chick-fil-A. And then I'd feel terrible and I would go another week. But after every cheat, I would stay on keto longer. And so as those gaps between falling off or screwing up a little bit become wider, now you're getting into ketosis more. You're getting more ketones, and your ghrelin and your leptin, your hormones, your satiating hormones are now regulating a little bit. And then you go a little bit further without cheating because your appetite starts to drop and your cravings start to drop away. So I was not perfect. I didn't just drop the sweet potato and then voila, never had sugar ever again. No, I was not perfect. I fell off of it, but I said, okay, gonna get back on. And if I fell off, I said, okay, gonna get back on. I tried to not beat myself up. I knew that I was trying to climb a huge mountain, considering the diet that I was raised with and accustomed to. And so again, back to just being patient and just have the goal in the distance and just keep getting back on the horse. It's cliche, but it's true.
Excellent advice. I hope that anybody who's listening is going to listen up sharp to you, because you did it the right way and you made it work.
And so it's also, if you do fall off, but it's too much to get right back into keto the next day, what you said is perfect. If you binge, because I'm also a binge eater, so if you binge on a whole sleeve of cookies, because I could do that. I could have a whole sleeve of cookies. Mm-hmm. So, but the next day, now that you've repopulated your gut, you've changed your gut biome again. Now you have inflammation. Your body wants to sugar again. You're having a crash with. It's just, I don't know if I can go this whole day without cookies. Like you said, okay, well then have half, and then by the next day, the second day, you might be okay with, okay, I have a little bit of a craving, but I could just go eat a pound of bacon instead and get myself just, because that helps too. If I'm really having a tough time, I'm like, well, if I eat that pound of bacon, there's not going to be any room for cookies or for whatever I'm craving.
Yeah, I do the same thing, except I don't eat bacon anymore. I'm beef only. And
Yeah.
my tagline is, it's a kind of a funny thing. It's fix yourself with fat, but that's what I do when I'm suffering like that. That voice inside me that wants me to go have the cookies or the ice cream, that I refer to that as my demon. And he wants me to destroy myself. That's what he wants to do. And it can even be with something healthy like weightlifting or working out.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's good. He wants me to do so much of it that I'm going to be destroyed from it.
Yep.
And what I found with my high fat beef only, when I keep my fat at or above 90%, is that the demon goes to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's always going to be there, but I can put him to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and I fix myself with fat. So it's not always easy to do, but when the demon is there, you can go have your pound of bacon. I'm going to have a pound of fat. And
Yeah.
I've done this before, and I will get stomach distress from it, but it's a lot better than the demon making me go eat some ice cream or some cookies. That's going to make me a terrible father and
Mm-hmm.
a terrible husband as well.
Absolutely. Sometimes when I describe my binge, it's more like a binge beast, I call it. And I can kind of see an image of what this binge beast, when it's activated, it's just in this room tearing through Cheetos and ice cream and all the things, molten lava cake. I mean, everything that I love, it's just tearing through it. I'm like, oh God, I've activated him again. And anytime I try to leave the room, he just gets more crazy and then he starts eating more. So, so how I kind of see it is like, I have to back out of the room without him knowing. And what I mean by that is by doing some of the things we're speaking about, just kind of, let me just throw in a steak in there because he's so busy eating. Let me just throw some steak in there, back out of the room slowly. And then you just kind of calm it gradually. And yeah, it's funny that you called it like a demon, because I kind of see it the same way when it's activated. It's a wild part of us. It really is. And it's tough to manage when it's stirred up.
It is. And it's reassuring knowing that there's someone out there that's as similar to me, because I don't hear these things from other people.
I don't either. Yeah.
It's interesting. I've had periods of time where the demon was awake and I couldn't put him to sleep. And my recipe would be, well, let me have my meat and my fat first. Let me have my 90-10. And
Right.
then if I'm gonna go have stuff, at least I've gotten that in first. And
Hmm.
then I look at my macros for the day and they're not as bad as they could be. It's
Yeah.
at least I'm trying at that point.
Exactly. I've done the same thing where, and I actually just, I don't eat that much bacon. I hardly eat bacon, but I'll have like a steak, a fatty steak. And then I say, okay, well, if you still want the bag of Cheetos after, we'll talk about it. Yes, I refer to my inside voices as we and then and where, but yeah, I'm like, all right, I know you really want those Cheetos. You want to binge on Cheetos right now. We're going to have a steak with butter and we'll reconvene. And usually you don't want it. You may want it a little bit, but the craving goes away because of the fat and then the protein. So
Exactly, and that's what I found for myself when if I eat a huge amount of fat, I'm just not gonna want anything.
yeah.
It makes the demon lay back down and take a nap, and I'm
Hmm.
good for a little while.
Absolutely.
Alright, so on your journey, you reduce your sugar, you say it took about 2 months or so, you got rid of the sweet potato. Then at that point, you were less than 20 grams of carbs, right?
Hmm. I
Okay,
think at that time doing a very, very high veggie keto at that time.
that's one of the things I was gonna ask, was what your diet looked like then. But I wanted to talk about any mental or physical health benefits you started to notice at that point.
I had this period where my brain was working like it had never worked ever in my life, ever, ever. I had no pain in my body. I was calm. I was patient. I could leave the house. I didn't mention how bad of an issue that is for me, a lifelong issue about being around people and leaving the house. But I was able to just, oh, I have to go to the store, and it wasn't like a full anxiety and oh my god and people and what I look like and all of this negative internal dialogue and blah blah blah. I just left. I just went to the store. I had never experienced that before. And I was really during that blissful stage. I said, please, I'm like, is this how normal people feel? Like, I couldn't wrap my head around it. And I'm like, well, what the hell is anyone else's problem? How come I'm like, I would be unstoppable if I felt like this my whole life. I would have done anything and everything that I've ever dreamed of if I felt like this. I just was like, what stops people from achieving their goals? So that was a really incredible experience. It didn't last to that level. I mean, I was on cloud nine. It was better than a Xanax. It was amazing, amazing. But my anxiety to date, like fast forward 6 years later, it's still nowhere near where it was. I still have a calm. I still have, you know, control, over myself. It's really pretty hard for me to get into a depression. I allow myself to wax and wane because I'm a human being and I am naturally sensitive, right? I'm naturally sensitive. I've been through a lot. I have the right to be moody if I want to be a little bit moody. I just move through it very differently. I don't hate it when it happens. I just make a lot of space for it. Like, wow, what's going on right now? I'm moody and I'm feeling like I kind of want to cry. I look into it. I don't catastrophize it anymore. So, am I on cloud nine all the time? No, I'm not. I'm in life, and I have four children that I'm always worrying about. I'm a completely different person. I'm a completely different person in ketosis than when I'm out of ketosis. It's night and day. So I still have a tremendous reduction in anxiety. I still don't have any chronic pain. Actually, all the injuries that I had cleared up, and I've never had problem with my joints again. Even my tinnitus disappeared. I had chronic tinnitus. Sometimes I'll have a bout with it, but it doesn't last too long, maybe a few weeks, and I can't explain it. I don't know what sets it off, but it's not all of the time. It might be once or twice a year, but I did go about 2 years without it. So tinnitus gone. I also had a history of abnormal pap smears, and I've never had an abnormal pap smear since. Before that, I had, precancerous cells and things like that. Oh, I mean, I lost weight. Forgot about that. Lots and lots of benefits. And the brain fog, my brain works better. I've had a lot of issues. I've had some strange learning disabilities, and it's helped that as well. So it's really helped everything, mental and physical.
At first, I just want to say I'm so happy that you were able to find the ketogenic diet and that it can do for you what it does for me, because and I'm getting choked up here because I know what it's like. We're a different person when we're on the diet. And for me, it's exactly that. I am a completely different person. And
Yeah.
a simple example is just seeing myself in the mirror. I go into the bathroom, I see myself in the mirror. And when I'm off and when I'm really bad, I hate what I see. And I'm like, no, I don't want to, I don't even want to see that guy. And I immediately wish that I could change my appearance. And it's a terrible feeling. I want to change
Mhm.
everything about myself. And when I'm on, I'm not going to say that I necessarily like what I see, but I see my reflection. I'm like, whatever, doesn't bother me. You know?
Right. It's a great point. I talk about a negative filter. Okay. And it's like when I'm out of ketosis, I have negative lens. I am what I say with my clients, I'm under a chemical spell of negativity because the hormones are off, my neurotransmitters or everything is off. And these lenses of negativity get stuck over your eyes and your perception, and you can't take them off. And then magically, I'm in ketosis, eating beef and butter. And suddenly I'm like, okay, I have the same amount of money in my bank account as I did the other day when I was in a mood. I look exactly the same. I aged only 2 days. There's nothing has changed. Yet out of ketosis, negative. I don't want to look at myself. I don't have self-acceptance. Every situation that I confront, it's just more negative. And then I'm in ketosis. My body is working. I have brain energy. I have cellular energy, and I have the strength, and I can tap into my wisdom. It's like the wisdom disappears when I'm way out of ketosis. I'm able to access like my wisdom, looking at things a little bit more positively and just healthier in every way. Life changes on keto. I know that sounds crazy, but life looks different. The world looks different in ketosis.
That's exactly right. And it's the same for me. And so you're my fourth guest now. My first guest was Brett Lloyd. He's the Thankful Carnivore,
Mhm.
and he uses a carnivore keto diet for his mental health. My last two guests, they were not mental health victims. They're using carnivore for other reasons, but they have experienced enormous mental benefits.
Mhm.
And it's great hearing that. One of the things you said was you couldn't leave the house, and then suddenly you go into the store. It's not that big a deal. And I describe it as life just becomes easy.
Mhm.
And I have a to-do list. When I'm off, my to-do list, it just keeps growing and growing, and I don't check anything off. I have a hard time getting started, and when I get started, I can't finish. And my wife's nickname for me when I'm like that is she calls me 75 because I do 75% of a task and then I move on to something else. But when I'm in
That's
ketosis,
funny. 75.
yeah, it's funny to you. It's not funny to me. But when I'm in ketosis and I'm doing well, I'm like blazing through my to-do list and I'm adding things like, okay, what's next? What else can I do? And I'm just super productive and life becomes very easy. One of the things I like about Brett is he says that he has effortless happiness. He goes to bed happy. He wakes up happy. And
Mm.
I feel that way too, but I also have effortless enthusiasm and I have enthusiasm for all the simple, banal things in life. Now, a show like yours, I'm going to be excited for. I couldn't wait for this. But a little thing like after this, I'm probably going to go have a steak. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to see my daughter in a couple hours, simple things. I see her every day, but I'm just looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to
Mhm.
the rest of the day and what the weekend's going to bring and all that. It's just effortless enthusiasm for life. But when I'm off, I hate every minute. And I wish that I could go back to last week when I was having fun for 5 minutes. I'm thinking about tomorrow and I'm feeling anxious and irritable and I don't even want to face tomorrow. That's the difference.
It's a huge difference. It really is. And even with, productivity, before keto, I could sleep 16 hours. I mean, I was like a cat. I could sleep most of the day. I look at my fat cat now and I'm like, I used to be you. I try to pick him up. I'm like, come on, get up. You're sleeping all day. Get out of bed. But I physically can't even stay in bed that long. Even if I'm not in the best mood, I'm just like, I don't have the desire to stay in bed in ketosis. My body actually says, well, we have energy here. You got to do something with it. So if you're not going to, if you're in a mood, you're not going to go out, or you're not going to be too productive, we have to do something. It won't even allow me really to stay in bed, which is just amazing. My body likes just 7 hours. It wakes me up on the dime at 7, which is strange. I'm like, okay, but 8 was when the cycle kind of ends. But 7 hours, unless I've done a lot of activity, then I might sleep a little bit more. Yeah, even on the days that aren't great, I'm leaps and bounds more energetic and more, I'm stable. I'm in a mood, but I'm not unstable.
It's the same for me, and it's the same for my previous guests. And if you talk to anybody else who's on keto, they're going to tell you the same thing.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Great. So your podcast that I listened to was a couple of years ago, and at the time, you were eating red meat, but you were also doing avocados. I think you said you were having an avocado every day, and you were still eating chocolate. I'm curious what your current routine looks like.
Yeah, let's see, 2 years ago. Well, 2 years ago, I was eating a ton of dairy. Absolute dairy addict. Didn't mention that. I am a dairy addict. I'm talking from the time I was 3. They would call me like the little mouse. They're like, you're like a mouse. And I mean, I couldn't get enough of dairy. And so, especially as a woman, I think anybody should be concerned or curious, but especially as an aging woman, I just turned 47. I said, I don't know if I should be having 10 ounces of dairy as a bovine milk as a grown 47-year-old woman. I said, this doesn't sound right. There are, hormones in dairy. That's what it is. It's for growth, right? For baby cows or whatever to grow. And also the other thing, it's the opioid effect, the casomorphines that are in dairy. And I said, oh, that's why I'm so addicted to it. It's because I have this mitochondrial issue, and I have this issue with dopamine and serotonin and all that stuff. And I have been using this from a young age as my drug. This medicates me. And I said, this is a problem. Because with food addiction and with, like I said, aging and just, I don't think I want something affecting me like that. I don't even know myself without dairy. What would life be like without dairy? And that was the real test. When you do an elimination diet, it becomes crystal clear how every type of food affects you. I still eat chocolate, by the way. I don't have avocados. There's no reason I don't have avocado. I just don't. They're not canceled out of my diet. I'll have them if it's put in front of me, but I just haven't been eating them. The dairy, I am almost really very low dairy, put it that way. Because when I did the experiment last year, I think it was last year, I actually quit dairy. And it was like quitting cigarettes. I had such withdrawal symptoms. I've never heard anybody say anything about it. I became a little upset because I said I didn't know I was so addicted to this. But I had to eat everything with water because I had no saliva for 5 days. My body didn't want to eat anything. If we're not having dairy, you're not eating anything. And so my taste buds and my salivary glands said, we're not going to eat. We're going on strike. Everything tasted like cardboard. I was actually sad. Like I felt a sadness in my body. I was irritable. I said, I'm going through opioid withdrawal. And I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it was that bad. It's a long story. The journey is now with that, I don't know, 6-7 months old, maybe more. I do have my heavy whipping cream in the morning, and have some in my coffee. But as far as any other type of, I have butter. Any other type of dairy, I don't eat. It's going to be a treat. It's going to be a here and there because having that response getting off of it was a big red flag for me. Something's not right. It shouldn't be that hard to eliminate a food like that.
And this is where you and I probably differ a little bit because I've got the addiction side, I've got that demon, and I can't do that little bit of heavy cream. I can't do the coffee either. I
Mm,
can't do butter. I used to, especially in the beginning when I was trying to get my fat up because I hadn't discovered beef fat yet. I
yeah.
was doing a lot of butter, but my first thing is I get skin reactions. So if I have butter, I'm going to
Mm,
get zits, right? I get them right here. If
mhm,
I have, depending on the cheese I have, I'm going to get certain kind of eczema on my arms or on my legs. But
mhm,
like with everything else that I react to, I'm going to get angry and I'm going to get irritable. And I've tried this many times with many
mhm.
different kinds of dairy. I've tried the ghee. I've tried making my own clarified butter, my own ghee. I've tried raw cheeses. And the biggest problem is that addiction piece that you're talking about is
Yeah,
that I start thinking about cheese and I'm going to bed at night thinking about, oh man, I can't wait to have my cheese tomorrow. And
yeah.
then I'm having like an ounce or two, and then I'm having 3 or 4 ounces,
Yep.
and then I'm not even eating meat and fat anymore. I'm just eating the cheese. And then I'm finding myself, I'm not even hungry, but I'm eating more cheese. I just want
Yep.
cheese. It takes a grip on me.
I can live on cheese.
I could
I
too.
I think I can live on cheese, at least for a few days. But yes, you have to listen to your body. Everybody is different. And with the butter and with the little bit of heavy whipping cream, I'm fine. I don't have any cravings for cheese. So for me, I'm okay with that. But yeah, you have to listen to how your body responds to, different foods.
Have you ever tried a full carnivore approach?
I haven't. And I have wanted to for a very, very long time. But that beast, that beast really, it's a tough battle. And I absolutely will one day. But so part of my healing journey has to do with recovering from trauma. When I go carnivore, I try to go carnivore. I'm okay for a day or two, but sometimes the struggle and the blowback from certain parts of me. I do part work, and I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people aren't familiar with that. It's similar like inner child work, but it's a little bit different, more in depth. But there are parts of me that get very, 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 very angry and upset. Sometimes it's just too much. And so to date, I haven't pushed myself to that point. There might be a time where things are a little bit easier in my life to where I can get over that hump. But right now, I still have a lot of just responsibilities, a lot of obligations, kind of like a lot of stress. And it's just a little too much for me to force upon myself. I'm doing well with what I have now, how I'm doing things now, but I would love to go carnivore because even Georgia Ede, who I studied with, she said there's a big difference between standard keto and going carnivore. So it may be the difference I do need for some of the brain fog and some of the anxiety that I still have. Yeah, it might be something that I would benefit from, but I'm just not there yet.
I want to be clear that even though I'm a carnivore, I'm not here to push the carnivore message. I believe that diet is highly individualized, and my thing is fix yourself with fat. I don't care if the
Yeah.
fat comes from plants or it comes from animals. But the reason I asked about the carnivore thing is because you and I are so similar. And I just
Yeah.
wonder if you were able to ever try my approach. Now there's this thing out here that exists that didn't exist before the HFBO. I just wondered if you tried it, how it would be for you. Let's talk about fat percentages. Because do you track your food? Do you know what your fat percentage is?
Yeah, it's about 75. It's like the standard keto. So
Okay.
75, 20 and 5. So for people out there, 75% fat, 20%, no more than 20% protein, and then it's about 5% carbs. Really turns out to be, 20 carbs or less. In the beginning, I was higher. I was hitting 87% fat in the beginning. And I did feel great. Maybe that's something that I should shoot for. But I've become very comfortable and I don't have to track. And sometimes when I do track and I look at the pie chart, it's just so dead on. I'm like, I don't even have to think. I hit it just naturally every day. So for me, it's second nature at this point. Once a year or here and there, I'm curious, especially if I'm mixing around different fats and foods and things to see where I'm at. And I'm usually just hitting it intuitively and effortlessly.
That's good that you could do that. I'll tell you, if I ate at your macro ratios, especially with any amount of carbs, I would not be doing very well. My reference point is on a 10 scale. When I'm really bad, like when I was my worst in my 20s, I was a 1 or a 2 on the scale. I was barely even surviving. If
Hmm.
I did keto like you, I could get myself probably to a 7 or an 8, which compared to a 1 or a 2, like you would take that any day, right? And I'll be productive and I can get through life and I'll still be happy and all that stuff, but I won't be calm. I'll
Hmm.
still be angry. I'll still be snapping at my family members. So now over the past couple of years, I've gotten myself with this approach. I've gotten myself to a 10 and a 10 plus. And
Wow.
there's a huge difference between the 8 and the 10 to where I can no longer accept the 8. It's not good enough for
Yeah,
me.
I bet.
It's great and I love it, and if I had to be there for the rest of my life, I would take it obviously over a 2. I
Yeah.
tell this to some people and they're like, "Oh, well, you got some nerve. I mean, you're at an 8," and the person that is saying that they're at a 2 and they were like, "Well, I'll take your 8 any day." Well, but now I have a different lens to view it through.
Mhm.
I wanna be at that 10 because I need, especially with trying to be a competent father with a troubled kid who has the same issues that I do with impulse control. I need that calm. I need the extra calm that comes with it. And if I ate at your macros, I would not have it. I would just not be there to
Interesting.
do it.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm kind of fortunate. I don't need to be in high ketosis. If there's two ketones in my body, I seem to be okay. Sometimes I felt really well, and I check my ketones, and they're 0.2, barely there. Maybe this is my 8.
Well, you said in the beginning that you were doing an 87% fat ratio and you were also experiencing a cloud 9 feeling. It may have just been that you were new to ketosis and that's where the cloud 9 came from, but it could have been from the higher fat percentage. It's something to think about at least.
Yeah, I have thought about that. I do know a lot of people experience that month or so of bliss or a few weeks of bliss in the beginning, and it doesn't go completely away, but it doesn't stick on cloud 9. Again, I would love to try it. I would love to try it, and I hope I can sooner than later.
Well, you should use the same approach that you used when you were cutting out sugar. You should go
Yeah,
gradually. Take it slow. Look at the next 2 or 3 months or pick a time where you wanna do it.
yeah.
January, World Carnivore Month, you might wanna do it then, and maybe in November and December, start working your fat percentage up, because if you get your fat percentage up and you start feeling better, the carnivore thing might become as easy as being able to leave the house when you couldn't previously.
That would be wonderful. It's the thing that I would have to kick, it's the chocolate fat bombs. So I didn't actually answer. Yeah, I still have chocolate. I do love chocolate. That's really the only thing that I'm eating. It's the keto desserts, which is the fat bombs, and I might have a little bit of keto ice cream. So that's really all I would have to kick. It's the keto desserts. Otherwise, I really only eat beef and butter and meat sticks and what else do I eat? Yeah, I mean that's really I'm very close. I'm close, but it's not the same as actually being there. I know the difference.
So where is your 5% of carbs coming from? Fat bombs and
Probably let me think about what I had yesterday. Well, it might come a little bit from the dairy, might come from the chocolate, the fat bombs. I mean, I rarely eat vegetables. Oh, and then probably the artificial sweeteners, because I don't think they're exactly the net carbs that they advertise. There are no laws for
Mhm.
net carb stuff, accuracy. So, yeah, if I'm having any keto snacks, especially packaged things, I have to be very, 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 very careful. I have to go on what my body says. I can't go on the package. I might have, but this is because it's in my house. It's not what I want to eat. But there are like little wraps that advertise as one carb, and I'm like, they're not one carb. I can feel it. But so sometimes I might have that with cold cuts. I still eat cold cuts because I enjoy them. Yeah, the carbs sneak in there pretty quickly, very easily.
On your podcast, one of the things I liked you mentioned was an acronym. It was DOMS, which for people working out, it's DOMS. It stands for delayed onset muscle soreness.
Yeah.
But for you, you renamed it to delayed onset mental suffering. And it's
Yeah.
when you eat something you shouldn't. And man, I resonated so well with that because I'm to the point now where I've tested this a million times. I love chocolate too, and I love cocoa, and cocoa butter is 100% fat, and I love cocoa butter. I used to make my own fat bombs, and I would get it in chips and just eat the chips, but it messes with my skin. It messes out with my eyes. I wear contacts. My contacts get
Wow.
fogged. But again, like everything else that I react to, I get angry and irritable. And cocoa, specifically cocoa, it's as powerful as wheat or dairy, where it really messes me up.
Wow.
And I can predict, like, okay, if I had cocoa today, I know in 48 hours, I know what I'm going to be experiencing. So that's the delayed onset mental suffering you're talking about. I was just curious for you, how long does it take for the trouble to set in? And then how long does it take for you to recover?
It's pretty immediate. For example, when I first bought the wraps for my son and I tasted them, I binged on them a little bit, and this is what happens to me. You know, because it has nut flours in it, which I'm very sensitive to, and different types of starches and fibers and all of that. So they're small, but I had like 4 or maybe even more because I'm a binge eater, and that's what happens when I'm eating something I shouldn't eat. But I didn't know, and I tried it. Some of the symptoms that I will have, I'm going to yawn. I yawn almost immediately. If I've had something that's affecting ketosis or that's just not good for me, I'll yawn. I may even get sleepy. If I go way off, which I never do, I never actually have like a full Thanksgiving dinner. But when I used to do that, I would, the pain, the pain in my chronic pain condition would come back. Okay. So I would have inflammation and shooting pains in my joints. I'll have headaches. I'll actually my skin will get very dry and hot. I mean, I have a serious reaction to carbohydrates. When I have a lesser cheat, like with a few wraps, or a keto dessert that has like almond flour and, or if I have nuts, I don't do well with nuts. It's going to be the next day. I'm just a little sadder. My energy's lower. But with the bigger binge, sometimes so I have the pain overnight, and then the next day I'm like not too bad, but then the next day I'm depressed. So sometimes, yeah, it's delayed. It's like it's crazy how food affects me, or the wrong foods.
It's the same way for me, and all those things that you mentioned, like the nut flours, and it's it's really a shame because a lot of nuts are very high fat. But if you give me a giant tub of almond butter or peanut butter, especially if it's crunchy and salty, I'll eat
Oh,
the whole.
exactly.
And I don't.
Exactly.
I'm the type where I don't want a spoonful. If you tell me I can only have a spoonful, I'm gonna tell you no. I don't want that. I want the whole tub.
The
And
whole thing.
something like a Nutella or even the healthier versions of
Oh my
this
gosh.
hazelnut, and I'll eat just raw hazelnuts, but I want to eat the whole bag. But
Yeah,
they mess me up really bad, and it's like you said, it's 48 hours are like the peak effects for me, and then
exactly.
it'll take days for me to recover from that.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. 48 hours. That's pretty much it. At the 48-hour mark, I'm starting to feel normal again. Normal meaning back in ketosis, back home.
When we were prepping, we were talking about your water intake, and you mentioned something about hydrogen water, but I didn't get a chance to ask you, so I was hoping you could share it with our audience.
Yeah, there's a lot of opinions on hydrogen water. It's not the most scientifically studied thing right now, but I like to try things. I consume, so I have a brewer. Actually, I have it right here. So it's a bottle. I think it's 14 ounces. And it infuses the water with hydrogen gas. And it's supposed to be a very, very powerful antioxidant. And a lot of us who are sensitive to the foods that we've been speaking about have issues with the MTHFR gene, those genes. And so the systems that are affected, it's the antioxidant systems that are mostly affected when we have those gene mutations. And so I'm always game to try anything that's labeled an antioxidant. Of course, it's most important to take away things that are going to be flooding, your system with free radicals, but it's not going to hurt also to have antioxidants, in your system to help as well, especially with that gene mutation. So I started to experiment with it, and what I do is I believe it's 4 liters that I take on an empty stomach, mostly in the morning. And on the third day, I didn't understand. I had forgotten that I was drinking the water. And on the third day, I'm like, why am I smarter? I said, I was like, what did I do right? I'm like, did I take more lion's mane? What did I do? I said, oh my God. I'm like, is this the hydrogen water? I didn't think it was going to help my brain function. I thought it would give me more energy, or it says it's anti-aging. I wasn't expecting to notice anything. But I noticed that the little bit of stirring anxiety that I tend to kind of have in my solar plexus was almost not there. I couldn't physically feel the anxiety. I sensed it in my system, meaning like kind of in the back of my mind if I'm worrying about something. I felt it, I sensed it, but I wasn't feeling it in my body. And my clarity, my cognitive functioning was better. And that's where my mitochondrial dysfunction hits me. It's that the brain function, the processing, the remembering my words, remembering my points, not getting off track when I'm speaking, staying just focused on tasks. I'm just so much better. It seems to really, really bring down anxiety and stress, and thus helps my brain to not be in a survival mode, gets back in that parasympathetic mode. So that's my story. I don't care if there's no research. I don't care if people think it's a scam. It works for me. I don't think it's placebo, because sometimes I don't realize I didn't drink. I didn't follow my own protocol. And then the next day I'm like, ugh, I'm not as sharp today. And I'm like, oh, I didn't follow my protocol, yesterday. And so I'm kind of feeling it today. I don't even care if it's placebo. That's what I do. It works for me. I love it. It's been great. And so that's my spiel on hydrogen water.
Don't worry, I will not judge you and I will not hate you. You keep doing it. It works. You keep doing it. So have you been tested for the MTHFR mutation?
So not directly, but a colleague asked me to graciously, she does this for a living. She studies nutrigenomics and helps people in this area. But she graciously just said, let me see the raw file or download the raw file of your ancestry DNA, upload it to this website, and let me just glance at it. So it wasn't like a full consultation, but she just pointed out, oh, this is why you do so well on meat. And this is where you might be actually have a lactose intolerance. And I said, but I have such a great tolerance for dairy. She's like, no, it's coming out as brain fog, not digestive issues. And I didn't know that. When I think of dairy intolerance, you think of people running to the bathroom and having gas, and I have none of that. I can eat a whole log of mozzarella. I have no problems. I am perfect. No, it's the brain fog and it's other systems that it affects. So she was like, oh yeah, right here and right there. She's like, oh yeah, that's why you do so well with beef. And oh, sorry, your question. And then she said, yeah, it's not your MTHFR function doesn't look too bad, but it looks like there is, possibly some issues in that area. And she's the one who explained to me that it's your detox system that's affected.
And when you have that mutation, is it the folic acid that would be low? Am I saying that right?
So with MTHFR, we have a hard time taking the forms of Bs that are in our food system and methylating them. It's a methylation issue with the B vitamins. And in the food system, they put all of this fake folic acid in there, and it's actually toxic to us who have the MTHFR gene.
The way I understood it was, when you have that mutation, that your folic acid levels could be low. I haven't been directly tested for it, but I've had a mineral scan done just a couple months ago, and my folic acid was above range. So I'm assuming I don't have it. But even if I did, I don't know that it would change anything that I do. I do incorporate some organs. I do eat liver. I eat brain, marrow. I like those things because they're high fat, and I just have them as a treat every once in a while. I have some bones down in the fridge I'm probably going to have after we get off the show. I love roasted marrow bones.
Nice. I got to get recipes from you.
Oh, everything's super simple. Yeah, I'll hook you up.
Awesome.
So let's move on from diet. I want to talk about other things you do for your mental health. Can you talk about the role of meditation and breathing exercises in your daily routine and how they complement your diet?
Yeah, I started meditating 3.5 years ago, I think. 3.5 or 2.5 years ago. And it was very difficult in the beginning. But it plays a really solid role in my mental clarity, my mood, again, having a more positive filter, being more resilient and patient. And it has to just do with your brain waves. I mean, you're training your brain waves when you're doing breath work and meditation. So throughout the past, 3 years, I've gone through phases where I would meditate twice a day. I did study TM, transcendental meditation, but then I've done a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, and I've done tons of other different meditations. Right now, I'm just doing 10, 15 minutes a day. If I go longer, that's great. I usually do it in the evening because I feel like I have so much to process. Like my body, sometimes it could be overstimulated, or the whole day is kind of like on my shoulders, or the next day is also on my shoulders. So I need that time to be in complete silence, eye shades on, or complete darkness, and just allow my body and my nervous system to process in silence. I have no problems with guided meditation, but I think everybody should just try to have some of their meditation just in silence to let your body process without any sensory data coming in.
It's very good advice. And I owe you a huge debt of gratitude because listening to your podcast on Sunday, you talked about breathing and meditation. It's something that I started on New Year's and I stuck with the breathing. I do the Wim Hof breath holds.
Okay, yeah.
I do a bunch of other stuff, but that's my favorite. And that I stuck with for a couple of months. The meditation, I only did for about a month because it's so difficult for me. I do the guided ones and I like having
Hmm.
the gongs or a voice talking, but when I try to sit in silence, man, it's so tough and challenging for me. And I it was so tough that I gave it up very easily. But I've had 4 days in a row of breathing and 3 days in a row of meditating. And when we prepped the other day, I meditated before we got on, and I also meditated right before we got on. And I usually get very frazzled in these moments. I have to set up the studio, and there's a lot involved, and I'm nervous, and I can get very unwound very easily. But I meditated. It was only about 8 minutes, but I sat down and I felt very settled. And I'm going to continue. I like that you said about doing it in the evening. So typically during the school year, Samantha's not home during the day. So I'm doing my meditation either in the morning when she's in bed or during the day
Hmm.
when she's in school. And at night, we're together. I do try to get her to do it at night, but she cannot shut off. She's just getting wound up at 9 o'clock at night. But I'm
Wow.
going to try that at least for myself because what I've been doing lately in the past couple of months is I'm spending time. I'm working on the social media and I'm editing a show or I'm prepping an interview or something. And it's 8 o'clock at night and I'm on a computer. I'm going to try to shut my computer off and take 10 minutes to meditate at night and see how it works for me.
Yeah. It's great if you could do both, to have anchors. Anchor kind of do anchor meditation, so morning and in the evening. But I would love to do it in the morning, but I just haven't lately. So I don't put a lot of pressure on myself as long as I get some meditation in, and settle myself at least once a day, then I'm okay with that.
Are you still practicing any breathing exercises along with meditation?
I don't have a dedicated practice for breathing, but if I feel like my nervous system needs some help, I usually go into box breathing. And you can pick any numbers you'd like, but just breathing out, let's just choose like 10 seconds. So you're counting 10 in your mind all the way out, completely emptying your lungs. When you think you've exhaled fully, exhale some more. Choose a number to hold it. You hold the exhale for whatever, 8 seconds, breathe in for 10, or you can change it to 12 and hold for 8. So it's, exhale, hold, inhale, hold. So it's just kind of that. It's called box breathing. So that really helps.
That's a very popular one. I find myself doing this a lot when I wake up at 4 a.m. and my wheels are turning. It actually happened when I was falling asleep last night, and then I woke up around 4 a.m. and I'm rehearsing my introduction to you, and I'm rehearsing the show and how it's going to go, and my wheels are spinning. In order to calm that, I start doing some box breathing, and I am
Yeah.
counting, but especially when I'm in bed, I'm trying to sleep. I'm just doing whatever feels natural, but I am doing it in a box rhythm, and it really works.
The other thing I do is I stretch my neck a lot and my face. I hold a lot of tension in my face and in my neck. So twice a day in the morning, right before I get ready, after I putting lotion on my face, and I just massage my neck, my face. It also kind of helps the vagus nerve. So that has to do with the nervous system being calm, and the parasympathetic doing what it needs to do to keep you, at peace, at rest, and digest. So I do stretching with my neck. Sometimes I'll incorporate breathing with the different neck exercises and facial massage. What are some of the other things that I do? I do a little bit of aromatherapy on myself. I have a pretty extensive sleep hygiene routine, and I could get into that. I do a little aromatherapy. This is one of my favorites. You can buy it at Whole Foods. It's called Chill Pill, and it makes a huge difference on my mood, honestly, and on my nervous system. But would you like me to get into the sleep hygiene thing?
I would love that because that's something that we practice here. We've been just for Samantha's sake, because she, like I said, she's getting wound up at 9:30 at night.
Mhm.
We do a lot with sleep hygiene.
Yeah. So it doesn't begin at night. It's an all day kind of thing. And so what I mean by that is, now right now is an exception, but I usually have my blue light filter on all of my devices all day. Not just not just like when the sun goes down. No, I don't need the blue light. I don't need the artificial blue light toxicity. It can affect dopamine. I feel that it affects irritability. Um, all screens and lights, but screens specifically, especially like my big TV. I just have little tolerance for my big television downstairs. So all day my filters are on. I make sure that I get real light, natural light, before my eyes ever hit a screen or a light bulb in the morning, or whenever I wake up, from waking up a little later. And I also do keep my blinds halfway up, so that I don't keep them all the way down, so that my body, before I'm even waking up, I'm getting the sun. It's hitting or not necessarily the sun, but I'm getting the rays on my skin, and I'm getting sunlight, through my eye shades, and I'm getting the cues. It's time to wake up, to just help me to regulate. So natural light in the morning, the blue light filters on everything, no caffeine after one, the latest. But again, my caffeine intake is very low. I'm talking, I have like a quarter coffee mix that I have is very little. So at sundown, I do not have any bright lights on at all, and especially no bright lights overhead. And then once I'm showered, and I drop the temperature a lot. So cold room, I put the aromatherapy in my bed. I put brown noise on. So even before I go in the shower, I have my whole thing set up before I go into the shower. So I have the bed, ready for me to get into. I have my aromatherapy going. I have the brown noise on. I have my eye shades on my pillow, and I have face tape too, which is a whole other thing. But I do use mouth tape and face tape so that I'm not waking up with a tension in my face and neck, which I'm very prone to, and also so that I'm not breathing out of my mouth, because that's also important for rest, is to be breathing out of your nose. So I think I covered everything.
I absolutely love that you said it's an all day thing, and I'm
Yeah.
doing just, I think, everything. You don't have any of like the red blue blocker. These are actually red lenses.
Yeah, I don't, but speaking of red light, so after I come out of the shower and I go to bed, because I do wake up to use the bathroom at night, I have a red night light.
So do we. I switched
Yeah, I
that.
just have a red, yeah,
Yeah.
red night light.
When the sun starts going down here, we put our lights on. They're all red bulbs. I have a
Yeah,
really
yeah, a lot of
dim
people do that.
in Samantha's room, and it took a little getting used to.
Mhm,
Uh, we're also, because of me trying to avoid EMFs, so I had the whole house on LEDs, and they were all the super bright white LEDs, because of my eyes, I have keratoconus, I don't see well, so the
mhm,
bright light, I can see well, but I switched all the bulbs over. We have the red light bulbs at night. I switch over to, sometimes Samantha has to come in here and remind me to put these on. And the last
mhm.
couple months since I've been doing the channel and I've been on socials, I have been neglecting my nighttime hygiene. I just haven't really been giving it that much focus. But what I've noticed is that when I'm doing the diet right and I'm in deep ketosis, that I sleep better and it becomes less necessary, but it doesn't mean that I should be neglecting it. I'm going to get back into it, but I
Yeah.
do the same as you. The blinds, and at least in my bedroom, they're opened, and I like being able to see the sun when I get up. And I always
Hmm.
try to get sun in Samantha's eyes when she gets up, but
Hmm.
she she doesn't always go for it. But it is a full time thing, and we have a lake that we swim in that's right by the house, and I take her there. We're there in the evening a lot, so as the sun's going down,
Right.
we're doing that. Yeah, we're doing a lot of the same things. It doesn't have to be if you suffer from mental health. I think it's important for anybody to have good sleep hygiene.
It helps with everything as far as it just you're regulating your hormones. We're earthly creatures. We're regulated by light, by the sunlight and by the moonlight. It's important for everybody. There are so many studies. I mean, everyone listens to Huberman now, so you know all about what he preaches. There's really not much it doesn't affect sleep and getting a good sleep. Really,
All right, you ready to get into our closing?
sure.
Okay. I have 2 questions that are from you posed to your younger self. The first will be related to diet and mental health, and the second is not necessarily related to diet and mental health, but more of a life lesson. So the first one is, what is a piece of advice you'd give to your younger self before you discovered this diet? Something along the lines of how to get through the tough times.
It's a tricky question to answer because I think I followed all of the advice from professionals and people I thought who may be wiser than I was or older, and nothing really seemed to help, whether it was medication or regular talk therapy. I really didn't get very far with feeling better. So, what I might say to my younger self is possibly to reach out maybe for more group support. You know, they threw so many acronyms out at me with all of the diagnoses. Like maybe if I would have just tried to reach out to connect with others in the same situation, but I just felt like, why? Why are we all going to have a powwow over, our suffering? So at the time, I didn't find that valuable. And I do have a very different perspective on that. I really rely on group support and group connection. So that would be a piece of advice. Definitely reach out to groups and at least have people who understand. Will they have answers? I don't know. But it doesn't mean that the experience is worthless, because at least you're not feeling isolated and so weird and so, just like a black sheep. So that would probably be my best simple piece of advice to my younger self.
That's a great answer. I'm sure if you would have embraced the group sessions back then, it would have definitely helped you through the tough times. So the second part of the question is similar, but not related to diet or mental health. Just if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
It would kind of be a little bit of a warning, honestly. I would forewarn her that she might be a lone warrior for a long time, maybe fighting the battles, fighting her own battles, and um, trying to find her way out of the darkness and trying to find her community and her tribe and trying to get people to see the goodness in her. There's a lot of battles ahead. But just because you're doing it on your own, it doesn't mean that it's not a worthy battle, that it's not an honorable battle, that it's not a righteous battle. So don't interpret being alone on this journey for a while as you're deserving to be alone. That it's some sort of reflection on your value or your worth in the world. That's probably the biggest piece of advice, because in a lot of cases, I still have to kind of battle alone. But I don't want to interpret that as some sort of reflection on who I am or on the worthiness of the battle that I'm fighting. So that's probably, I think, a big lesson that I try to instill even in my clients. If your family's not supportive, if your friends aren't supportive, if it seems like the whole world is against you, It's not necessarily saying that you should quit and give up. To stay strong and to really stay really true to what your heart is saying, what your intuition is saying, what you feel maybe your higher power is saying. When you have a passion, you have something that's just won't leave. Like, it doesn't change. It's something that you've always been passionate about. It's a truth that you don't know why you know it, but you know it's true. To follow that regardless, whether you're on your own or not.
That was really excellent. I love that answer. I keep thinking that I need to change these questions or take them out because they're so similar, but each guest keeps giving such an excellent answer. And while it is posed from your adult self to your younger self, you're talking to our audience. You're talking to people who are suffering and people who want to get to where you are now. And hopefully they will take your advice. I really love that. Thank you.
Thank you. They are wonderful questions. They're great questions.
So this takes us to my signature question now, which is a question that encourages guests to share a broader, more philosophical insight or a life lesson that ties into your experience with the ketogenic lifestyle, hopefully providing something meaningful and potentially new, even after our in-depth interview. So what's one powerful piece of fat-fueled philosophy, a life lesson, or a mantra that you've embraced on your ketogenic journey and that you think could inspire our listeners?
There is no one size fits all keto. From the time it may take to be effective, from the kinds of foods you eat, from the other metabolic approaches that you incorporate, it is completely individualized. You have to understand that it worked for me very quickly. Yeah. Some people, it might take 9 months. You have to stay the course. And hopefully you do have somebody, a coach, a dietitian, a metabolic psychiatrist that can help you troubleshoot and adjust, because it is just it's very nuanced. There are things that I do that nobody told me to do. I've had to figure it out. Like, I have very high potassium, right? And I don't know, it works for it calms my adrenals down. It prevents me from having restless leg syndrome at night, which is just terrible. And it keeps palpitations away. I figured that out on my own. I have no idea really why that works or why I need so much potassium. But anyway, just understanding that there's no one size fits all. You've got to be patient. Everyone is their keto journey is going to unfold differently. It's going to look a little bit differently. And to also start to use your intuition. When you eat something, how did your day go? When you ate this, did you sense, maybe you didn't even feel it, but do you have a sense, an inkling that, I don't know, I feel like maybe my energy is a little lower, or maybe I feel like, I don't know, I feel like maybe I'm a little negative? Could be. Listen to those little things, and then over time, you'll get so in tune with your body that you end up being able to really troubleshoot a lot more quickly. And it'll also help your coach or your dietitian when you're in tune with your body. They're going to see over time, oh wow, this person really kind of knows their body, so let me listen, take that feedback before I make adjustments.
That was so awesome. I'm giving you a round of applause for that
one. I would bow if I wasn't already sitting.
Current name of my YouTube channel is Find Your Keto. It's the third, fourth, fifth name. I don't know. I've had a couple of different names, and this one I like. So I'm a carnivore, but I've said I don't push the carnivore message. Sure, I would like to see everyone do lion diet for 30, 60, 90 days and then add stuff back in to see what they react to. But I don't push the carnivore message. I push keto. I believe that low carb is appropriate for our bodies, and that keto, like you said, is going to be different for everybody. You have like my neighbors and my parents that are not mentally suffering, and they just, if they lowered the carbs, they lose a little bit of weight, they would feel much better. So now the name of my channel is Find Your Keto. Everybody's got a different keto. Mm-hmm. It's going to be different for everybody. I want to help you find your keto. So that's why I love that answer so much. Thank you.
Yeah, that answer was pretty on brand.
That was great. I love it. All right, I'm going to put my get up on now. People who are watching the show know I like to take us out with a laugh, because life doesn't have to be so serious all the time.
This is going to be the hardest part for me. No, it really is. not a goofy person. I definitely have a sense of humor, but
You don't have to be goofy.
yeah, I can't. I just can't. I can't. It's not me.
What the heck did I do to my window? I did this last week too. I put my hat down on the keyboard and I just hit something.
Oh no. You need a
Yeah.
hat rack.
So I've got my 5 tenets that I live by, and one of them is to have fun and enjoy life. And I want to take this out with a laugh. So here's the tagline. It's fix yourself
Oh
with
my God.
that. So you think you can do that for us, Mia?
I'm gonna try. It's not gonna be as animated as you, but I could.
Yeah, do it with some enthusiasm. Pretend you're a rapper, you know?
Oh my God. Yeah. So okay, I'll say it. Fix yourself with fat.
There it is. That was perfect. That was perfect.